You ever been in a situation where you're talking to someone, but you feel like they are just not listening to you? It's like what you're saying is going in one ear and out the other, or it's just falling on deaf ears. Well, if you've ever struggled with this in the past, today we're going to change that, because in this video, I'm going to share with you 3 tips to get people to listen to and pay attention to you more. Hey, my name is Paul Macetta, and I am a researcher in the field of human communication. So if you like learning about human communication, then go ahead and consider subscribing. So the very first tip that I want to share with you today is what I call vocal variety. So vocal variety is the ability to switch up and modulate the way that you communicate with people. So if you're constantly speaking in the same kind of monotone voice, volume, pace, and rhythm, what happens is the human mind winds up getting lulled almost into a sort of trance where it's not really paying attention to what's going on. So the key to stopping that from happening and re-engaging the person is to add some contrast, is to add some variety. So if you think about it, this is why the most popular songs on the planet have different elements within the song structure. That's why there's bars, and then there's choruses, and then there's breaks, there's intros, there's outros. There's lots of different elements within a song that serve the specific purpose of creating contrast and creating variety, which keeps the listener engaged. Well, the same is true when you communicate with people. When you communicate with people, they are listening to you the same way that they listen to music. And so you can't think that the same rules of engagement don't apply when you're communicating with people, because in both cases, they are listening. They're choosing to give you their attention, whether it's through listening to a song or listening to you communicate with them via a conversation or a speech or a YouTube video or whatever it may be. And so your job, if you want people to pay attention to you, is you need to keep them engaged. And one of the most effective ways to keep people engaged is to constantly vary your vocals. So you want to change your tone, you want to change your volume, you want to modulate your pace. In other words, sometimes you want to speak faster, sometimes you want to speak slower. When you emphasize important points, you want to raise your volume up. You also want to strategically use pauses, which give people a millisecond to absorb and process what you're saying. So there's lots of different ways you can use vocal variety, but really the key point is you want to constantly be changing the way that you speak, not drastically, but subtly, because that's what keeps people engaged. The next thing that you want to exhibit, which is kind of self-explanatory, is authenticity. So when you communicate with people, be yourself. Don't try to be something that you're not. And so oftentimes what will happen is when people do this, you'll see it in their body language. Like they'll often get squirmy, or they'll look away, or you could see that they're almost fighting to get the words out of them, because they're not speaking in a way that is natural to who they are. Now, here's what I will say. There is such a thing as adaptation when you communicate with people. In fact, in one of my communication protocols, I teach adaptability. Adaptability is very, very, very important when it comes to effective communication, meaning you need to be able to adapt based on the people that you're speaking to. You need to be able to adapt based on the environment, the context, the circumstances, the feedback that you're getting from your audience. But that does not mean that you stop being yourself. You have to look to the core of who you are. And while you might have to change your tone, your rhythm, your body language, you might have to change your subject matter, you might have to change certain questions that you're asking people, you might have to change the dynamic of the conversation in order to adapt. That does not mean that you stop being you. So be authentic, be who you are, because here's the reality. If you're that afraid to be who you really are, that says more about you than it says about the people that you are communicating with. And so if that's something that you struggle with, that's something that you need to work on, because you not being authentic is never going to make people pay attention to you more. What you might do is get their attention temporarily, but then ultimately they're not going to respect you, they're not going to listen to you, and they're going to write you off. And then the last thing is to use speech exercises. So you can practice the way that you actually articulate certain words. As a matter of fact, I'll put a link in the description to my book, Bulletproof Articulation, 101 Ways to Improve the Way That You Speak When You Communicate with People. These are 101 short exercises that you can do to improve your speech. But the point is that just like exercise of any other muscle or body part is beneficial to you, speech exercises are extremely beneficial to you. So things like constantly keeping your lips wet, right, or moist so that your lips are not sticking together, the effective mouth movements so that people can actually see the words that are coming out of your mouth, all of these different things have an impact on the way that your message is perceived. Making it a habit to avoid using vocal fillers like ums and ahs and ohs and you knows. And I'll be the first to tell you, I had a big problem with that. In fact, years ago, I was doing a teleseminar with a group of guys, and during the teleseminar, I was speaking to a group of people. I think we had like maybe 15, 20 people on the call, and I got off the call and I thought everything went great. I was like, man, I killed it. I really delivered on that. And then the person that was recording the conversation, he made like a little remix of all the different times that I used vocal fillers. It was just almost a 2-minute recording of me, well, like constantly using these vocal fillers. And when he did that, at first it kind of annoyed me, but it really opened my eyes to how much I'm using vocal fillers when I communicate with people. And if he never did that, I might have never actually had that awareness. And so now I make it a practice to avoid doing that. So again, just like practice of a sport or a body movement or exercise impacts you positively in other aspects of your life, you need to practice the way that you communicate and speak to people. For example, this microphone that I use, I love it, but it picks up plosives very sensitively. So in other words, when I use words like p that begin with a P, this microphone picks them up. So what I try to do is almost pull back. See, I pull back. I almost inhale when I use words that begin with a P, because I don't want to blow people's eardrums out when I communicate using this microphone. Now, does it work all the time? No, the technology is not perfect, but at least I'm cognizant of it. At least I'm aware of it. Now, do you think that that happened by accident? It didn't. It happened because I observed that it was happening, and now I consciously and cognitively make it my business to not do certain things, use certain words, use certain terms, use vocal fillers. I'm constantly exercising and practicing the way that I speak so that it's more effective. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, leave me a comment, and if you enjoy this type of content, consider subscribing and hit that bell notification so you get updated when I release more videos like this.